Welcome to First Look, a feature of the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. And we've been interviewing booksellers who are attending the fair to find out some of the things that they are bringing. I'm Linn from the Ridge Books, and I'll be there. But two old friends of mine from Toadlily Books in Decatur, Georgia, Libby Ware and Charlene Ball, are with us today. Libby and Charlene are married to each other, but they don't always agree on the books to take to the book fair. And so I think they're giving us separate lists today of some of the treasures that they're going to share with us. So I'm going to, because we're having some microphone problems, I'm going to cut mine off and turn it over to Libby and Charlene. Welcome.
So I wanted to start off with a book, and actually, if you go and you look at the video that Lee did, she mentioned a book, Cross Creek Cookery. Well, I have one, except there's something different about it, and I've sold, different versions of this book. But this is the first one I've had that is signed. There's actually an inscription by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. It's kind of faint. And it's dated the year of publication, 1942. So it doesn't have a dust jacket, but it's in very good condition. And it's one of a kind because it's actually inscribed to someone. I'm not sure if she knows her or not, if it's an association copy, but it is signed with an inscription. So we do have a little bit of overlap in our books, and so we're going to be going back and forth. So Charlene's going to show one.
My focus is on children's books and illustrated classics, and I have here a book by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings called The Yearling, very famous illustrated classic children's book that she wrote. This is a later copy that I have. It's from 1945, but it has illustrations by N.C. Wyeth. As you can see, the cover is beautiful, and it's really a lovely book that I like very much. It's one of the books I have that I would like to keep. So it's one of my favorites. Libby?
So I have another cookbook that's a little unusual. So this is the first British edition of the Alice B. Toklas Cook Book. So what's interesting about this book is the British edition has a recipe. People often talk about, I always heard hash brownies or hashish brownies, but actually it's hashish fudge. And she does have the recipe for it in here. But the American publisher said, no, we're not cooking with hash. So I have a copy of the American, and now I have a copy of the British. So if anybody wants to make hashish fudge, you can buy this book and get the recipe.
Another book from across the pond is Anne Anderson's Fairy Tales. Can you see that? Anne Anderson was a Scottish illustrator, very well known in her day, in the early 20th century. She was influenced by the Art Nouveau movement. You can tell with the sweeps and swirls of that illustration on the cover. Anne Anderson was married to another illustrator named Alan Wright, and sometimes they illustrated books together, and so their styles merged. One of the things about this book that's kind of interesting and a little problematic is it has a character in one of the fairy tales. She's a white girl who is turned black for punishment every other day. And she is described as ugly by some people. The people who love her, though, say that they love her in spite of whatever color she might be. There's a line drawing in the margins by Anderson that shows this young girl in beautiful princess-like garments, wearing a crown, looking very dignified. The only person who calls her ugly, actually, is a wicked prince who unfortunately married her on one of her white days and then was enraged when he found out the curse upon her. And the curse is then lifted by a good fairy. It's a turn of it's a 1920s version of early racism. It's a very interesting book.
So this is a book that Charlene and I actually own together. We have many copies of The Water Babies. Let's see if I can pull it out. I don't know why I'm holding everything crooked. But anyway, this is a beautiful book that is illustrated by Jessie Wilcox Smith. And on the half title page, it's signed by her, and there's a small photo of her that's pasted in. And let me see if I can show this on the screen. Yeah, hold that. So you can see there's a little photo of her and her signature.
Water Babies is a fascinating book anyway. I have some other copies of it besides this one. It's part delightful and part tedious, like a lot of Victorian books, but you can see here the exquisite illustrations by Jessie Wilcox Smith. And this next book is a novelty. It came out in 1910, and there's nothing wrong with the screen. It is slanted. And this is called The Slant Book. This is by Peter Newell, and the entire book is slanted, and it's a picture book, and every picture in it shows the effect of the slant. Baby carriages running away, people rolling downhill, people running downhill, dogs running after baby carriages, and so forth. Another book also by Peter Newell is The Whole Book. And this book is distinguished by the fact that it has a hole right through it. And it literally does have a hole right through the book. The first page shows a little boy playing with a gun, which it says he should not do. And he discharges the gun, and it blasts a hole through the mantelpiece clock, and then goes through all kinds of other things, from an old gentleman's pipe who's smoking it, to a balloon that's on a string, and the string goes right through the string, and is stopped by, there are a lot of stereotypes in this book, really, but it's stopped by a newlywed wife's cake icing. She's just iced a cake, and the cake icing is so hard and tough that it stops the bullet right as it goes through. So those interesting books from the early 20th century.
So here's another illustrated classic, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And this one is illustrated by Arthur Rackham. And one of the things that's really unusual about this book, it's very scarce to find it in a dust jacket. Well, this is like a bonus because there's actually two dust jackets. I don't know how this happened, but one is on top of the other. And so I don't know, all those books out there that don't have dust jackets. And then this one has got somebody else's dust jacket, I guess. I don't know if you're familiar with Arthur Rackham, but he has these kind of, they're always kind of, creepy and macabre looking. And of course, this is a creepy and macabre book. So there's a sample of one of his illustrations.
But beautiful too. Delicate and beautiful and creepy and macabre.
Yes.
Rackham is unique.
So these are a few of the books that we're going to be taking. We also have some in other categories. I also sell occult. and I have a lot of LGBTQ and women's movement, the temperance movement. A lot of those are ephemera. And so anyway, we just tried to show a sample of some things that are fairly new that we have and that are unique in some way. So thank you all for hosting us. Do you have any questions?
Yes. I don't know, some are just comments, but some are questions as well. Y'all always have a wonderful selection of things. And I know we buy stuff from each other back and forth on occasion. A couple of things that came to mind. After you sell your copy of Cross Creek Cookery and people are looking for one, be sure to send them to me. I don't have a signed copy, but I do have 2 copies right now. But they always do well at the Florida show. In fact, I think maybe the cookbook does better than the novel itself sometimes. But it's a really wonderful cookbook. And let's see, I made some notes on your on the fairy that goes from white to black, and you said there was a line drawing. Is the line drawing with her in the princess outfit? Is she white or black in that? I'm assuming she was white, but that would be kind of interesting.
Called The Woodcutter's Daughter. And she starts out with blue eyes and blonde hair, like your typical princess in a fairy tale or heroine of a fairy tale. And then a wicked enchanter curses her so that she turns black every other day. This curse is on her, and I don't know if they heard you about the illustration. The illustration is of her when she is black. She is dressed like a princess, however, and she is wearing a crown, and she looks very pretty and dignified in the drawing. It's not a stereotyped, one of those ugly caricatures that you see sometimes.
Good. At any rate, there are so many books from that time period that we find similar things that I suppose folks who wrote the books didn't necessarily think they were racist, but they surely do look like that. So I'm excited to see that book when we get there. The classics that are illustrated by Wyeth are just so wonderful. We were on a trip to Pennsylvania when my boys were like 8 and 10, and we're in, of course, in antique stores and bookstores, and some of the things that they bought with their own money were some of the Wyeth illustrated older books that we still have. And I think those are just great for kids nowadays to have. And let's see, the whole book, I love that. You may remember that Westvaco Paper Company used to do a Christmas edition of something that they gave to employees and to customers. And the year that they did the Red Badge of Courage, it has a bullet hole through it as well. Through the book. I think that's a really neat concept, really neat idea of what to do. And let's see. Oh, and Libby, if we should find a copy, was it Water Babies that had the 2 dust jackets? If we should find a copy with that,
it's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
If we should find a copy that needs a dust jacket, would you be willing to negotiate a little bit on that?
We'll talk.
There might be a marriage ceremony, unofficial, maybe.
Yeah. So let me ask you your opinion about this, Lee. I know it's not really kosher to marry a jacket, but I also have 2 other copies of Cross Creek, first editions that do have dust jackets. Do you think it's okay to marry a jacket, say to the signed one, as long as I disclose that it's married? What do you think?
A really hard question, and I think it's something that people disagree on a lot. I think if it's like repairs to a book, you've got to disclose it. And I don't know whether adding the dust jacket would increase the value, like if it was the original dust jacket, to that extent. I don't know. And I think you'd also have to be sure that that dust jacket was the right, that was first issue. You'd have to make sure that the dust jacket matched. But yeah, it is awfully tempting to do that. And but of course, now that you've talked about this, you probably can't get away with doing it. Somebody's going to say, where'd that dust jacket come from?
Yeah, I have a Flannery O'Connor, which is the same situation. I have a signed association copy to one of her relatives, and it's actually signed Mary Flannery. And it's Wise Blood. And so I have, and it doesn't have a dust jacket. And looking at the book, you can tell it didn't have a dust jacket because, the spine's kind of messed up. So yeah, it's very tempting, but I have not done it. Actually, I haven't even put it out for sale. It's sitting in my glass case at home.
Cleaning out some junk the other day, and there was a pile of dust jackets that I'm not sure where they came from. And I was looking at them and thinking, I wonder if I could need these at some point, because they don't seem to be to books that I currently have, though perhaps I had them at one time. I don't know. But yeah, there are just so many little things like that, that we try to take into consideration. Something you may not know about Libby and Charlene, that not only do they sell books, but they write them as well. They have written books individually, and they have written the first one of a mystery series together, and the second one is to come out next fall, I think. So I'm going to let them tell you about their books. They're really fun to read. The first two of them, we had them come to our book club here in Calhoun and talk about the books, and they'll have copies with them in Florida. And so, when you're visiting their booth, take a few minutes to see what they've done as well as sell books. So I'm going to turn it back over to Libby and Charlene to tell us about their books.
Okay, so my first book, it's a historical, and it's called Linn, and it takes place in the Appalachian Mountains during the 1930s. And Linn is an intersex woman who really has no home of her own, but she goes to stay with different relatives, and gives a little bit of her backstory and what's going on historically. Also is the coming of the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I show in there how it did take land away from the farmers. I absolutely love the Blue Ridge Parkway, but I can't deny that it had a negative effect on many people's lives. So you want to talk about your book, Charlene?
Yes, my first book is also a historical, set in the Tudor period, and it's called Dark Lady, a novel of Amelia Bassano Lanier. Amelia Bassano Lanier is one of the first women to publish, and to be known as a published poet. And some people believe that she was also the Dark Lady of Shakespeare's sonnets. In my novel, which is fiction, but very carefully researched, I'll add, Shakespeare is a character, and they are involved for a while. And they talk about literature, among other things. So that was my first novel. And Libby will tell you about our mystery that we wrote together.
Yeah, so we have what we call the Molly and Emma Booksellers series, and it's about two female booksellers, and it's about, each book is going to be about a different place or event that booksellers go to. Mm-hmm. So the first one is Murder at the Estate Sale. Mm-hmm. It takes place in Atlanta, Georgia, in kind of there's an estate sale in kind of a well-to-do neighborhood, and a body is discovered in the basement, and also in the basement is a secret occult library, which was not a estate sale. So Molly and Emma are trying to discover who was the murderer, and also they're trying to discover the truth about a missing note that came out of one of the books, and witchcraft is involved.
Mhm.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say the second in the series, in the Molly and Emma bookseller series, is at the publishers now. It's expected to come out in October of 2023, and it's called Murder at the Book Fair, and it is set at the St. Petersburg Antiquarian Book Fair. And
The murder does not actually happen in the book fair, but nearby.
right.
In some local landscapes, and we're now working on the third, and that's going to be called Murder at the Literary Festival, and it takes place in the North Georgia mountains. So we will have all of our books there. You can get a signed copy, and actually Linn was one of the blurbers. She wrote a blurb for our book, and so if you want, we can get it signed by Lee next to her blurb. So you can have a triple signed book. So come visit us. We're going to be in booth 36.
Yeah, we had talked, Libby and I had talked earlier about doing these triple signings. So if you really are interested in that, that book was a lot of fun to read. It was unexpected. I had not realized what was going to go on with the occult part of it, and found it really fascinating. But I did want to say about Lum and the Dark Lady, the amount of historical research that went into both of those books was really impressive, and I think you could learn a lot from reading them, and as well as being very well written and very enjoyable to read. So you get, a double treat when you go to Libby and Charlene's booth in St. Petersburg. Thank you all for watching us on First Look. And if you're interested, please go on Facebook and look for other dealers who are going to be coming to St. Pete, who have done interviews about what they're bringing. And if you're in the area, be sure to come to the book show. It is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, March 10th, 11th, and 12th. Friday night, all day Saturday, and until 4 o'clock on Sunday. It's a great show. It's a long-running show. This is our 40th anniversary, I think. And the theme this year has to do with the Roaring Twenties. The Coliseum, where the show is held, is an old dance hall from that era. And it's a fascinating place to go to just for itself. There's live music on Friday nights. It's a really fun weekend, and I hope that a lot of you who are watching us can come. And Libby and Charlene, thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Yes, thanks, Lee.
See you in St. Pete.
Hello, this is Alan Smith. Thank you for watching our video. You can watch more videos from the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair by clicking on the boxes at the left. Click on the right to subscribe to the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair channel. See you at the book fair.